manager, a message to the person who hired you in the business. Double checking weird circumstances is always important. Like Andrew Pappas is still like my personal underwriter, even though he doesn't want to be. I call him all the time about underwriting questions. Okay. Find a buddy that can do that for you, or find your manager. And if your manager won't do it, then call us, because we're going to get mad at your manager. Okay. But you have to ask the questions, and it's very simple. Like when you have somebody that's 42 and 40, here's the problem, you guys. If they have health issues, then you move into equity coverage at that age. But here's the problem, okay, which I don't like. I don't believe in equity coverage for a lot of people that are 40 years old, and here's why. Because they're still going to need a home after their spouse passes. I've had somebody tell me that before, where they go, well, I'm not worried about paying the loan off because we're going to sell the house. And I go, well, that's good and well. Where are you going to move? I mean, you can't just not have a mortgage. And if you go rent an apartment, it's going to cost you more than a house, right? So you still need the coverage. Does that make sense to everyone? So even with that question, when people are younger, I have a personal belief. I don't believe in doing that. And if you do equity coverage, I don't think you complicate it at that point. I think you just do like 50,000. Would you agree, Taylor? Just do 50 grand. But these questions are extremely difficult because every client's different.
So let's take this one. Connor, let's say I'm 42. I have diabetes. I take a pill for it. I have a blood pressure medication I take. And then let's say Kimberly has some type of estrogen medication or something she takes, and blood pressure pill. So let's go there. That's the scenario.
All right, here's the important questions with diabetes. First of all, height and weight. So we'll say Rumbo has a good height weight. You need to find out if they have any diabetic neuropathy. Ask them if they've ever taken gabapentin or Lyrica. If they've taken gabapentin or Lyrica with diabetes, that's like the biggest no-no in the insurance world. Okay? I think the only product that I don't even write anymore is Transamerica. You can write them standard. Okay? Everything else is guaranteed issue. Then the next question is insulin use. You need to make sure that if they do take insulin, no insulin shock. And then you have to go into other medications involved. Blood pressure is normally fine. If they're on 3 or more is where you find problems. So if he's on, let's say, metformin, which is normal, 500 milligrams twice a day or 1,000 twice, those are fine. Check height, weight. They normally want them, 30 pounds below height weight chart. On the grid, it'll actually show you what they like for, well, the Foresters use the diabetes calculator.
Yeah.
You don't have the diabetes calculator, do not message in. I'll have Rumbo put it in the chat or have somebody send it out, okay? Then what you do is use the Foresters calculator. They've been the best with diabetes. Do the Foresters calculator, then because you also need to find out A1C, okay? Yep. Anything above an 8 is considered uncontrolled. But Foresters, though, even running through that calculator, even somebody with a little bit higher, it'll still tell you what rating they can get, okay? Again, anything below an 8 is normally acceptable with everyone. All right. If they ever had amputations, they can't get it. Okay. So in Scott's example, you never want to make products sound like they're easy to get. Like you never want to tell a client if they're just on a blood pressure med, hey, this is no problem. It's always a problem. You're making it sound like they can get anything they want. Okay. But then what you want to focus on is then it's just a normal term process. Okay.
Are you asking as most elements, are you asking age diagnosed?
You got to find out that's why it's difficult to train on it. But yeah, okay, let's make a list. Height, weight, write this down, everyone. Height, weight, diabetic neuropathy or amputations, okay, medications, they've ever had insulin use, okay. Then you got to focus on when they were diagnosed, A1C. I mean, there's so many variables. But really on those, you're good, right, Taylor?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think just as like kind of an umbrella, like you need to ask when it was diagnosed, how severe is it, just for any type of ailment. Because we could sit here and train on specific things all day, but you're going to run into thousands of different scenarios. But like as a general rule if you're sending like your needs analysis to your manager, I know that's what we have our people do. You need to know like when it was diagnosed, severity of it, did they have any ongoing treatment? I mean, the diabetes stuff Connor just went through. You need to know height, weight, A1C, that kind of stuff. But I mean, just if as a rule, like if you have someone with diabetes, I don't know what your manager's telling you, but I would write Foresters because it can be. I mean, like they'll take an A1C up to I think it's like 10 now as like normal rating, and then they just came out with like a standard rating or a substandard rating for anybody, but they can still get strong foundation, just rated a little bit. So, yeah, if you have diabetes, go Foresters.
Yeah,
this will fix a lot of problems real quick. Write this down. If they've ever had a heart problem, not blood pressure, if they had a stroke 38 years ago, or if they had a heart stent 30 years ago, if anything mixed with diabetes, with anything related to heart outside of blood pressure, they will say no. Period. They don't. It's annoying, but they don't mess with it.
And don't go study the underwriting guides after this like crazy. Don't spend your time doing that. Book your appointments and maybe do that in your free time, but you learn all of this stuff by reps. And getting on the appointment and sending that sheet to your manager or whatever. Because then in your head, going forward, you're like, oh, he told me I can't do this. And then when you run into that problem again, you know exactly what to do. So don't go study product or underwriting guides, all that kind of stuff now. Just get your appointments booked, sit on the appointments, and learn by doing.
Yeah, and then call the carrier. You can call Foresters Underwriting and go, hey, what are some of the basic guidelines I need to know about diabetes? What are some of the basic guidelines? Don't do that, though, until you have appointments. You'll learn as you go. These guys have been doing this a while now. Okay, so now we got that out of the way. So no crazy medications, $250,000 mortgage. What's next?
Then it's looking at the need. And Taylor, we can do this together. I mean, then the next step is you're looking at income loss, right? You have to be emotional, but I think you also have to be logical when you do this. So you're looking at what the loss is going to look like. You ask the client that, like Taylor and Laney, right? I would say, hey, Taylor, like, were you looking for coverage on both of you or just to cover Laney? What was kind of the thought process? And depending on the quality of their answer is how deep I go into it. If it's really a junky answer like, yeah, I guess so, or yeah, maybe, oh yeah, you need to go through income. You need to figure out, again, okay, well, Taylor, if you pass away, Laney's going to be losing $8,000 a month. Okay, she stays at home with the 2 kids. If something happens where you pass away, let's say even if you have 100,000, yada, 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 okay? You just got to see where the loss is. And again, a lot of you on here are married, you have life experience. Put yourself in the position as the client. And then ask yourself, like if you're the lady, would I want my husband to leave me in this spot? Or if you're the guy, would I want my wife to leave me in this spot? Right? Or vice versa. And that's the best way to explain it. Don't overthink it. It's not rocket science, right? If something happens to one spouse and they lose X amount of income, it's going to cause a problem.
Okay, so we got the income thing. So now we go, okay, let's take that scenario. So Taylor makes $8,000 a month. She stays at home with the kids. We're seeing that scenario a lot more these days. And so now where do we go with that? So she says, well, yeah, of course I'd like to try to stay in the house.
You've got to have, I mean, you can look at the situation and know what needs to be done, but you have to, like Connor said, you have to use logic, but you also have to have the emotional part of that. Mm-hmm. It may look completely logical to you on paper, but if they're not feeling that, you're not going to get anywhere. So you've got to have logic backed by emotion. And drawing that pain out by asking the right types of questions. And we've gone over that 1,000 times. So go to the training center and watch that video if you need to. But you've got to have that emotion drawn out of them so that they're feeling the pain. And then you can show them logically why they need to do this.
Okay, so she's saying, yes, of course I'd like to stay in the house, but obviously I don't have an income. So, and let's say they got a little bit of equity in the house. So what's the plan then? Go, okay, well, obviously, there's going to be a problem.
So here's one thing I will say. Don't have her say, oh, I'd like to stay in the house. You need to have her saying, I don't want to lose my house. Yep. There's a lot more power in that than saying, I'd like to keep it. You don't want to lose it is the issue, right? But that's where, again, most people are dual income. But then after that, then you have to go through, again, it's just, Rumbo, give me same example I was talking about with Taylor and Laney.
Yep.
Okay, I'd say, okay, after going through this, you guys, do you understand why you need this? Taylor, you're the client. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next step is we have to find an option that's that you have to get approved for, and to make sure that Laney and your two boys are not going to lose the home. Okay, we're going to go through a few different options. I can't do my job unless you also ask me questions. So if you have any concerns or questions, make sure to ask me. And then you go through 3 quotes like we always preach.
What quotes would you run in that scenario?
250. It depends on the income, and I know a lot of you on here go, "Oh, well, my clients don't make 8,000." Okay, let's use a different example. Let's say that Taylor makes 4, okay, and his mortgage is 2,000 a month, and he really doesn't have a lot of money left over. Okay. Again, important question in the beginning: when do you plan on having the loan paid off? Every client always says depends, right? What I would focus on at that point, again, it depends. Man, it's just so hard because, again, you learn it by activity. I know that sounds funny, you guys, but you learn like these pieces. But if the loan's 250, what I always do is I quote out 250 depending. Remember, the average app is $83, so you want to get it to 83. You want your middle option to be 83.
Okay.
So I would quote 250 on Taylor.
Yep.
For 30 or 20 years. Now, if he's only bringing home after paying all his bills, and I know it's not very much money, I'm not going to show him a quote for $300 or $240 a month.
Right.
So what I'll just do is I'll just go back with the term length because I know the amount is important. So I'll do 250 for 20 years and 15 years. Don't do a 10 with Foresters. Your comp is reduced. Okay, 15 only, 15 to 20. And then I would show them a 20 and a 15 year, and then I would ask them based on price. I'd go, now again, every option I'm going to show you is going to take care of your spouse, or would either one of these fit okay within budget? Okay.
All right. Let's say they say no. That's kind of high. We don't have a lot of money left over.
Then again, I mean, depending on my quotes, like let's say I showed it was 180 a month and 140. I know that I need to get it below 100. So now I'm going to look, right? I mean, Taylor, you know that may be 60 to 80. So then I might look at half the loan, or then I might look at 150. Really, at that point, is trying to find a price point. But normally, I mean, 50 to 100,000 increments, depending on age.
Yeah, I typically try to go like 100%, depending on age. Like you said, this is all repetition. You kind of figure out where your sweet spots are. But I typically, if it's a younger couple like this, or maybe someone in their 50s, early 60s, I typically show like 100% of the payoff, somewhere around 75%, and then somewhere around 50% and go bottom up.
I'll say, all right, so you go 125. Let's say you go 125, 175, and 250. Mm-hmm. All right, you run those quotes. How are you positioning that instead of just going, it's going to give you what's it going to do for them?
I can answer it to you. So when I lower the amount, I basically say, okay, if something happens to your spouse, we're really playing on time as well, because we're hoping you don't pass away tomorrow. If you were to pass away tomorrow, your wife, it's not going to go directly to the lender. It's going to go directly to your spouse. So she's going to be able to determine what to do. Now, what she can do, okay, is she can pay off half the loan, but remember, she doesn't work, okay? So she might end up using the money to sell the property, okay? Now, normally the spouse works, okay? So I'm going to take this as if the spouse works, okay? When the spouse does work, okay, right? You make $3,000 and your husband makes $3,000. If he passes away, if we pay off half the loan, okay, you need to refinance it for 30 years, your new amount, and then maybe keep a little extra money beside from the policy, maybe put 100 down, not the 125, use that to make a couple payments, okay, on your new mortgage, and you're going to have to get another job. I mean, I'm not a miracle worker. You can't afford the coverage. I mean, I can't. That's where it's hard too, is what does it do for the client? It's, hey, it's $125,000 because right now, if you don't have it, you're going to lose everything.
Yep.
Yeah, so you got a couple options. So one, it could be that, okay, she goes, I'm going to have to go to work, get a job. So I take let's say that I take the 100 grand, I put it towards the balance of the house, and let me see if it reduces the payments enough so that I can get a job and pay the payments and stay in this house. If not, then I got $100,000. I'm going to stick it in the bank. I don't have to worry about losing the house and the kids and I moving out tomorrow. I'm going to pay the house payments until I get a plan. But I'm not losing my home. or my equity that's in the house. I'm going to use the money to pay the house payments and figure out what the heck I'm going to do. I got to get a job, but I'm not losing the house. Once I get a job, I can determine whether I can stay in this home or not, or if I got to look at a different option. Maybe got to move into an apartment or something for a while. Whatever it is, you're not out on the street or having to move in with family. So it gives them options by having that. Okay, so let's switch it up now. So let's say that same couple, he works, makes $4,000 a month. She works, makes $2,500. Now what do you do?
Looking at coverage on both of them then.
Same thing. Well, here's what I would say. If they're bringing home $6,500 together and they're only 42 years old, on a 42-year-old to cover $250,000 on a 15 or 20 or 25-year plan is not that much money. They could afford it.
Yeah.
At that point, it's a value problem.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's what, 60, 80 bucks? I mean,
I'm like, yeah.
And if they smoke, now you go, oh, well, what did they smoke? Well, that's their part. I mean, that's their fault. What I do with the smokers, I go, do you plan on quitting? Yes. Okay. Well, what you need to realize, and this is what I tell clients, okay? Again, when you smoke, I don't care if you smoke or not. That's what I tell people. But, I mean, you know that it increases rates. That's not a shock, right? And I just ask them, I say, hey, do you plan on quitting? If not, no problem. We'll just have to look at a different way. Do a 50-50 plan, what that is. Again, it's if they can't afford it. So you still want to show them the option. But if they're like, that's outrageous, then do a 50-50. Do, if $250,000 loan, $125,000 locked in term, $125,000 accidental, right? But one thing I do with smokers, if they do plan on quitting, I go, okay, well, let's start with half to begin with. And here's what I'm going to tell you. You smoke a pack a day. I don't even need you to quit. I need you to cut in half. If you cut in half, cigarettes are $8. $8 a pack, okay? 8 times 7 is 56. You'll cut your expenditures down, okay? You should only smoke 3.5 packs a week instead of 7, right? That's going to save you enough money to pay for your insurance. I do that all the time.
All right, so same kind of option. What you're saying is, okay, we're going to get you a chunk of money. If the full payoff doesn't fit, that doesn't work for my budget, you're still going to give them a chunk of money so they have options. This is going to allow you to, now she's working, she's got making $2,500. So if you get her $125,000 policy, remember, it's not the $125,000 policy. It's $125,000. Here's what that's going to do for you. It's going to allow you to be able to apply it towards the mortgage, call the mortgage company up, walk them through the scenario, call them up and go, hey, listen, I've lost my spouse. I've got $125,000. If I were to send you the $125,000, could you recalculate my loan based on the new balance and reduce my payments? And if so, what would the payments be? Get that in the process. They'll come back to you with a payment, and then you'll know if you can afford it or not. If you can afford to go, yeah, I can do that. Then you go, okay, if that's what you want to do, let's proceed with it. Let me send you the 125 grand. Let's recalculate it, get it down to a payment I can afford now. Remember, you got to explain what it's going to do for them. If you don't explain what it's going to do, they just go, it's $125,000. They're going to get off the phone and go, oh man, I just saw a TV ad. I could get $500,000 for half that price. I'm going to cancel that. It's not what it is. It's what it does for them. So you got to walk them through that. Here's what I mean, you really got to paint the picture. I would say this all the time in appointments. Here's what a lot of my clients do. They'll put the money in the bank. They'll call the mortgage company and say, draw the payments out of there every month. But right now, I don't have to deal with it or think about it. But I'm not losing my home. Give you some time to get your head around what you're going to do. And then when you decide if you're going to stay in the home, then call the mortgage company. My clients call the mortgage company up and they say, hey, if I was to send you a chunk of money, could you reduce my payments? Maybe I could afford them going forward with my salary. What would that look like? Or maybe you decided, you know what? I'm ready to move on now. I've kind of got through the grieving period. I got money in the bank. I'm not losing my house. I think I'm going to put it on the market. I'm still not going to lose it. I can't afford it on my own income, but I have the money in the bank from the policy. I'm going to put it on the market, sell it, get the equity out of it, put that with whatever money I have still left in the bank. I'm going to go get something I can afford.
And Rumbo, you hit on the head though. The real bread and butter to all of this is the build up to even showing a price. Your client buys before you show them a price. Okay. Here's what's difficult. These questions are very tough. Like, a lot of you on here played sports, right? Like, I'm going to give an example. Like, if you're a point guard in basketball and you dribble the ball down the court, right? You can run a play, but if you understand what I'm saying? If you're in the middle of the court, right, and you're above the 3-point line, right? You can shoot, you can pass, right? You can dribble around, go shoot a layup. I mean, you can pass at any five. I mean, the other 4 players. There's a million things you can do, right? But it all depends on the situation, right? If they're playing a zone defense and somebody's not playing in the right position and you drive to the hoop and it's open, then you're going to do that. But let's say nobody's guarding you at the top of the paint, right? You're just going to take a 3-point shot, right? Same thing in soccer, like, right? If you're a striker and you're dribbling the ball down the field, I mean, are you going to pass it? It all depends on the layout of the field, right? What people are doing. And that's what's important. I think what's important about all this when I talk about like basketball with the point guard is you have to have the ball in your hands. The problem is a lot of you're going, okay, which way do I do it? When you're not even on the court. You're not even on the bench, right? You're in the stands and you're like, well, why did he shoot it? Well, you don't know because you haven't been in that position before. So what I would tell all of you is put yourself in the position to learn these things, okay? But you sell the product before you go through all this. I hate talking about product knowledge, okay? Any of you that sit around studying product knowledge, it annoys me. I didn't even know what Mutual of Omaha was when I wrote my first app with Mutual of Omaha, right? I remember I called Cody Beck and he said, hey, it's the one with like the Indian mask looking thing in the top right. It's blue. I'm like, okay, cool, right? Here's the trick, just like I was talking about. It's not what it is, it's what it does for the client. Go put yourself in position. In all of these, again, there's so many variables, but when you put yourself in the position to learn these things, do the true 90 of 288 appointments, you'll laugh on here because you'll be like, yeah, Connor's right. I mean, there's a million positions to go, but you sell it before you talk about a price. It is sold before a price. People do not buy price. You know how you know that? Talk to a 19-year-old about this insurance where it's $14 a month and see if they buy it. They're not going to.
Let me ask you this. So at the end of the day, would you say you're at a high level, your options that you're going to consider are full payoff, which is maybe what? 10, 15% of the time? If it's someone young, here's what most of them are. You're going to give them a chunk of money that they can apply towards the mortgage to reduce the payment so they can potentially stay in it. Or you're going to get them options so that they can have 2, 3, 4 years worth of mortgage payments put in the bank so they don't lose the house and they can sell and get the equity out of it. It's one of those three. But think about yourself.
Try to find starting options for people too. Sorry to interrupt. Find starting options. Okay, if somebody can't afford the full payoff, say, let's find something to start with and change it in 2 years. I do that all the time too.
Yeah.
It's just per client, how much income they have, but it's all about value, you guys. You sell it before you show a number.
Go through, here's what you got to do. You got to ask those questions like Connor opened with to figure out what would you do? What do you want to do? What do you want to happen? What do you prefer happen? And then let's look at those options and see if we can find one that fits your budget. Run these, if you're brand new, run these scenarios on your own family. Go, what would I do? Maybe I wouldn't stay in the house. So let me run an option where I'm going to give myself 2, 3, 4 years worth of mortgage payments. Or maybe I would like to stay in my home. So what would it look like if I took half of my mortgage today and I applied that, I ran a quote for that, and then applied that towards my loan to reduce my payments? Just run it on yourself. Practice this stuff. Like Matt was talking about last Friday. Practice it outside of here. But don't do this. Don't find yourself today going, I need to go practice this stuff before I set my appointments. You don't. Because that's costing you money when you don't have appointments. So go set your appointments first. Okay, questions. How do you handle it when a prospect won't agree to meet because someone already showed them something and they said it was way too expensive? Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, just ask them what they showed them exactly. Why did they say it was so expensive? I mean, act shocked. I mean, because a lot of times it's not. I mean, it just depends on their income, but you just got to figure out their why. Maybe someone just got on there, quoted them something real quick without really going through the process, figuring out why they actually need it, if they actually need it. So yeah, just do that.
Here's what a lot of times they get is an agent walks in there and they go, you got a $250,000 mortgage? Here's how much it is to pay it off. They go, I can't afford that. And the agent goes, oh, well.
Yeah.
Because they're not presenting this stuff like we're presenting this and finding what the need is and presenting, here's what it's going to do for you. Most agents are not doing it this level. They're just out there quoting stuff and throwing it out there. And the client goes, that's way too expensive. I can't afford that. And they go, okay, on to the next. So just know that.
Rumbo, here's the two textings I know all of you are getting. And you can even go like this if it's you too. Okay, you get people text back, not interested. You guys get those? Okay. And then you get text back, like already taken care of. That one's not as much. So that one, Taylor hit it on. You know what I tell people when they go, oh, I already got coverage. I text back, I go, perfect. That is fantastic news. I just have to close the file out. What was the name of the agent and the name of the company you went through? Example, Americo, Foresters, Financial, or Mutual of Omaha. They respond back, right? And then I normally will even add in, hey, I apologize, Taylor. I just have to do my job and close this out. I do apologize if I'm for taking up some of your time. Then if they don't answer, I call them. Just go, hey, again, sorry, I just got to do this. I just got to close this out so I don't get in trouble. What was the name of the agent you guys met with? Oh, you got Americo. Oh, that's the most expensive option we offer. Why did they show you that you have a lot of health problems? Okay. Now on the not interested, okay, I text back when people go not interested. I go, you are welcome to be not interested, in parentheses, after you receive the information. What time works best for you? You're welcome to be not interested. You haven't received it yet. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. What are you not interested in?
Yeah.
And then I would call them as well. And here's the thing. I went through the other day and just called all the people that said not interested. I have my assistant put in a folder. I just call them and go, hey, you guys, I think you may have been confused because no one from our office has got the information to you. I just got to go through it with you. You're welcome to be not interested, but I just have to get that information to you first. Works like a charm.
Okay. We're at the end of it. Okay, guys, here's the thing. Just go get the reps in. You'll learn as you go, but you got to get the reps in. We talked about that yesterday. Go set your appointments. Go through the reps. Utilize the carriers for knowledge as well. Call them up in between and go, hey, listen, I got this scenario. What would you do? What's the risk assessment on this person? Find out. Just be a student, but don't paralyze yourself. Just go out there, get to work. Listen, we got in the weeds on this one today, right? We don't want to throw some hard stuff in there and just see, how you respond, because I get a lot of that. Hey, what if they had diabetes? What do I do? You'll learn about diabetes. Call the carrier up after you set your 6 appointments. Go, can you tell me what would be a knockout for someone who has diabetes? You'll just start to gain knowledge as you go through that stuff. Use your underwriting cheat sheet that's on that Nick showed yesterday. You can go through and look, diabetes. Here's the carriers that would consider diabetes. Use that underwriting cheat sheet. Use the underwriting toolkit. Utilize your tools. Don't stay paralyzed. You'll learn this stuff as you go. You'll learn it as you go. There's no sense in going to study a lot of product because you don't know what the heck you're going to write because you don't know what the client has. But pick a couple of options, like Forrester Strong Foundation for my term stuff. I know that Nick likes American Amicable's Senior Choice for if he's doing a whole life option or time buying option because it has a phone signature process. You don't have to send it over to them. Get a couple products, stay with those, and just run with them until you run into an issue going, well, they don't qualify for this one, and then figure something else out. Until then, 99% of the time, you're just going to be running the same 2 products all the time. Okay, guys, Retirement Solutions, right at the top of the hour at 11 Eastern is coming up. You heard about the debt-free stuff. You want to go check that out. It's coming up here right after this, at the top of the hour. Go check out the Retirement Solutions option for